Alright, I'm comparing Battlefield 4 on the Potato Masher and the PlayStation 4. If you don't know, the Potato Masher is a $350 PC custom built in December of 2014. It's designed to compete against the PlayStation 4 and other consoles for as many years as possible to see what you could do with the same budget as buying a modern console. The full Potato Masher specs are in the description of this video, as well as a link to the official build and concept video for the Potato Masher if you want some more information. Battlefield 4 is interesting. It debatably kicked off the modern trend of games not working well at launch. It was actually horribly broken on the PC for, I'd say, at least 6 months, and it still has severe problems. And then on the consoles, it was broken for at least a couple months. As far as I know, I didn't really play much multiplayer on the consoles. But on the PlayStation 4, Battlefield 4 looks pretty good. I'd say it's pretty close to medium high settings equivalent of the PC. Now on the PC you can run higher frame rates. I can't know for sure, but it appears Battlefield 4 is running at 60 FPS in the campaign. And the same turned out to be true on the Potato Masher, where I was able to have everything on Ultra except for anti-aliasing and a little bit of shadow work, and I was able to get a steady 60 FPS. Now I couldn't get the frame rate counter to hook for some reason for the campaign videos or for part of them, but you'll just have to take my word for it. It was running at 60 FPS and looked pretty great, which isn't to say the PlayStation 4 looks bad, but it does have noticeable aliasing. There's a lot of texture pop-in and object pop-in at distance, and the lighting is quite a bit simpler. And again, when you're playing it, you know, a lot of this isn't that noticeable. But if you do know what you're looking for, the difference is definitely there, and on the PC it definitely looks better if you have the hardware to run it, and Battlefield 4 does scale pretty well. The Potato Masher had no problem running it at almost completely ultra settings and getting 60 FPS. Now when you get out into more expansive areas of the campaign, kind of like this map we're in now, to maintain 60 FPS I did drop a couple settings a little bit farther down because it was like in the mid 50s. So again, I mean, that's not really a big deal, but if you want to sustain a locked 60 FPS, you may have to drop it down just a little bit farther. But it still looks awesome. Battlefield 4, when it runs well, and in the campaign it does generally run well, it's one of the best looking games that's come out in recent years. So it's definitely worth checking out if you like awesome graphics, especially because you can usually get it for very cheap because of all the issues it had. I'd recommend trying it for the campaign if you like first-person shooter campaigns. It's a pretty good one. I don't know if I could recommend it for multiplayer for issues that you are about to see, but it is very pretty. It's a good way to test out your new rig to see how good your stuff can look, and I personally think the campaign's pretty fun. And I did try playing it at 2560 or 1440p. It did run decently well, but I had to drop settings down to about medium to sustain 60 FPS. So if you have a 1440p and you want to play on similar specs to the Potato Masher, that might not work that well, but of course the Potato Masher is designed for 1080p. I just figured I would let you know about scaling it up. Now in multiplayer, in my opinion, the PlayStation 4 version of Battlefield looks like it has been hit with the ugly stick. It looks considerably worse than the campaign, but one thing that the PlayStation 4 version of multiplayer does do well is it does run well. The issues seem to have been pretty much fixed on the PlayStation 4 version. I think the community has gone to crap personally, but the game itself appears to have been fixed, and part of that reason is likely due to the strengths of consoles in that all PlayStation 4s have the same hardware. On the PC, I was encountering so much severe stutter and lag on every map I tried that I figured there must be something else going on that I just hadn't taken into account. Well, a quick visit to the task manager showed that all the system memory was being used up. Now you guys know we took a little bit of a gamble going with only 4 gigs of system memory, although, I mean, being realistic, 4 more gigs of memory would be $30, so it wouldn't be that expensive to upgrade if we wanted. But the interesting thing is, Battlefield 4 itself is only using about 1.5 gigs of memory, which makes sense. That's pretty normal for most of the games I've tested. What is abnormal is that it's tying up the rest of the system memory. The system hovers between 750 megabytes and 1.25 gigabytes of memory usage most of the time when no game is being played. And when most games are being played, it sits around 2 to 2.5 gigabytes of total memory usage. With Battlefield 4, like I said, the game's only using about 1.5 gigs, but the system is locked up at 3.75 to 3.8 gigabytes, and that means that it's trying to access the page file on the computer to offload some of the memory duties, and it can't keep up, and multiplayer stutters horribly. I tried lowering the resolution to 720p, and it doesn't make any difference. I mean, the game looks a lot worse. The frame rate doesn't get any better. The graphics card has plenty of juice. As you saw in the campaign, it can run the campaign fine. My guess is that there are just memory leak issues or memory optimization issues in multiplayer that haven't been addressed. To test this out, I fired up the Battlefield Hardline beta, as it uses the same engine and in many ways is a largely modified version of Battlefield 4. I wanted to see if the resulting extra year of development would have maybe fixed this issue. And it actually runs a lot better. The memory is still pegged around 3.5 gigabytes, but that does mean the game is playable. There were occasional hitches and stutters, but the game also is in beta. None of them appeared to be related to the memory issue. They mostly just appeared to be, pre-release game code. And after doing a lot of Googling, there are many forum posts and pages devoted to people talking about this same issue with Battlefield 4, how there's a severe memory leak issue, and even though the minimum requirements for the game are 4 gigabytes, almost nobody is reporting that they can successfully play the game with a smooth frame rate with only 4 gigabytes of memory. So I don't think this is enough to say, oh, the potato masher just can't handle this game. Now, if we had 8 gigabytes, yes, we'd be able to compensate for the memory leak, but the real issue lies with Battlefield 4 and its terrible, terrible optimization. So if for some reason you still want to play the Battlefield 4 multiplayer, make sure you have over the minimum requirements on memory. And if you want to play the campaign, hey, everything runs great.